Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Fezenclop, and we're going to be doing something a little different today. In the past, we've talked about DC Comics. Right now, I'd like to talk about something, well, involving DC Comics, and that is when they combined with Marvel Comics. Back in the 1990s, 96 in April is when the first 12 of these comics were published. Amalgam Comics, which brought DC and Marvel together, where they combined their characters into a different world. You had, for example, Batman and Wolverine were combined for Dark Claw, and there were several others. In that universe, with Huntress, for example, was Carol Danvers and the Huntress. They brought them together, and Super Soldier, which was an amalgamation of Captain America and Superman. So they were brought together as well. Now, we are using the Amalgam universe differently. We're using the brand because it is where DC Comics and Marvel Comics have worked together. Back in, as I said, in '96, in April, they started the first 12 comic run. And then in '97, in June, was the last of a second run of 12 comics. All 24 of these issues all of this came together and was done, and the amalgamation was brought together, and they did that. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up and bringing this back is an idea I had of a collaboration between Marvel and DC once again, and putting it in stores like Walmart, Target, Kroger, all of these places, grocery stores, drug stores, and it's a shared universe using some of the characters the versions of which exist in that universe only. So you would have Superman, but it's not the Superman of the main DC line, and you'd have Spider-Man, but it's not the Spider-Man of the main Marvel line. You're bringing them together, and you're having a version of them in a shared universe. And you would have actual comic racks, the metal racks that those of us who are old enough remember. We used to spend all kinds of time standing there going, oh, do I want this one or this one? Do I want this one or this one? Oh, I'll get this one. That's how we used to buy our comic books, and it was wonderful. It was so much fun to be able to do that, and then to take something home that you knew you'd like. Even if it was a mediocre comic, it'd at least be entertaining for a while. So the Amalgam Brand would be set in that shared universe using versions of these characters, and while other characters might be mentioned, they would not appear at first. Crossovers would be between the original 6 characters. You'd have 3 Marvel, 3 DC. Now, if the brand caught on enough, you could add other comic books, or perhaps other companies would be invited. I honestly don't know much about these other parties. Let's see, there's Savage Dragon and Spawn and characters like that. But you could eventually bring some of those in if this worked out well enough. Universe, I'm thinking kind of put it in a universe that's similar to Batman the Animated Series. That universe had some realism in it, but at the same time, a lot of, it was on WB Kids, so it had to have certain restrictions on it, language, how much blood or gore, things like that you could show. So you had to have, so having something like that, you're restricting and limiting how far out you can go toward adult behavior, I guess you could say. But the art would be comic book like, which is kind of more realistic. Now, we start off with 3 from each company. Now, DC is pretty simple: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. That's it. You start with the big 3, the Trinity, as they call it. Marvel, it's a little more complicated. Spider-Man, obviously, that's their big gun as far as characters go. Now, then for the other 2, you could go with Iron Man. He would be an obvious competitor with Wayne and LexCorp. Or Captain America, but the problem with Captain America is you've got a symbol like Superman already. with DC's characters. So you don't really need the shining icon character. You could go with Thor, which would be an interesting contrast with Wonder Woman because she's from the Greek pantheon, he's from the Norse pantheon. Maybe Doctor Strange, bring in a magical character. For a female character, I originally wanted She-Hulk, but then there's the problem that she gets her powers from Bruce Banner, also known as the Hulk, for those of you who probably shouldn't be watching this video because you're already completely lost. Black Cat would be out. She's a supporting character for Spider-Man more than anything else, and I don't think a world where she and Catwoman were both running around could survive long. It'd just explode. That'd be it. Most of the Marvel characters, the females that I know of, are part of a group or somehow connected to a male character. If you could get the classic Miss Marvel, it would work, but the newer Captain Marvel, let's just face it, that character's a mess. The less said, the better. However, there is a Captain Marvel that would work. Monica Rambeau had the name for a while, and she just might be the perfect fit. She originally used Captain America when she showed up, but gave that up to the original Captain America, well, the original Marvel Captain America. The less said there, the better. Gave it to his son. She went by Photon, ended up doing the same thing, giving that name to the guy. It's like, does he like creep around and following her? Okay, she's calling herself Photon now. We're going to take that one away from her too. Ridiculous. Then she went by Pulsar for a while, decided to give up a code name. Later, she was given the name Spectrum. Any of those would work. Then you could pick from the list here: Captain America, Photon, Pulsar, Spectrum, which is what she's currently using, last information I had. She was Lieutenant Rambeau from her time in the New Orleans Police Department. Spectra, Sun Goddess, Lady of Light, Daystar, Radiant One, and last but not least, she was called Golden Avenger, which, if I recall correctly, wasn't that something Iron Man has been called? I think so. The costs on the comic line would be kept low. Use the kind of paper they used to use. This is a type of paper at news scrap or newsprint or something like that. It yellows over time, but it might be cheaper because you want to keep the costs down on these. And there's a reason for that. This is, I hate to use this term, but it's kind of accurate. This is your gateway drug for comic books. These are inexpensive. They draw you in. They get you interested in the comic books. You aim at more younger readers. But if you can get them cheap enough, no $5 comics here, aiming at $1, $1.50. So you really have to bring those costs down. But you also can use it as a proving ground for new talent. You're bringing new talent in to do this. You're paying them less. Now, that sounds kind of heartless and cruel, but you're giving them a chance to show themselves. And you could also go back to the way they used to do it by putting advertising in. You know, hey, get your X-ray specs and all this other stuff. You know, make these kind of a throwback in some ways. And you're bringing in these new people, new artists. This is a resume. This is a resume enhancement tool for these young people. You make sure that they understand that's what we're doing. We're giving you a chance to put this in your resume that you did this comic for so many months, or you did so many covers on these for a while. If you do any advertising, perhaps mention that these comics are good for kids who are confined to their beds. I remember being in the hospital when I was a kid and my mother bringing me some comic books. I felt like I could fly for about 5 minutes. Then I got to sit down and get to enjoy some of these new characters. How I got introduced to Marvel's Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was his name. I got also, I think, yeah, that is also how I got introduced to Shazam, or Captain Marvel, the DC version. You know, and aiming it at younger kids, aiming it at, you know, he's in the hospital, he's getting his tonsils removed, or this or that's going on. Pick up some comic books. They're not that expensive. They're aimed at kids. Now, Stanley, I think, is the one I heard say that they were written for kids with a college level vocabulary. That's a great thing. They're learning words. Not that kind of words. Get your mind out of the gutter. These are written for kids. Jeez. Anyway, and you've got a couple of characters, Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel or Monica Rambeau, whatever name would be used, and make them good friends. They work together. They like each other. Lots of team ups between the two of them. And then also team ups between the others. You don't have to have a Justice League or Avengers or anything like that. You just have a group of superheroes that get together when the world needs them to. Anyway, it's an idea, and I thought it'd be great if you could get the two companies to work together, that you could do this. And again, it's aimed at kids. You keep the costs down, and you can use it as a proving ground for people who want to get into the industry or people who want to work in the industry for a little bit for that resume enhancement. Yes, I want to work for your company doing graphic arts or something like that, and I drew Amalgam Comics Batman for 6 months. And here they are. You did the comics. This is good. So you know a deadline. You can do this. You can pump this stuff out if we need you to. And, I'll never get the two companies to listen to me. So I thought I'd share that with you here today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, do the usual YouTube things. I'm also on BitChute, a little behind there. I need to get the rest of these videos up. So catch me over there if you can. If you have a better idea or if you think of ways to improve on this one, I would really love to hear it. And remember, it's all in fun and your mileage may vary.